Hi guys, so today we're dealing with calculator work and using calculators to find ratios and angles. Now generally our angles are measured in degrees, and we can find the value of sine, cos and tan of any angle by using our scientific calculator. So when using a calculator though, you must make sure that it is in degree mode. So to double check if it's in degree mode, you must have a little D on your screen like so. Now if you don't have a D, you need to change your settings. So you press Shift Mode Setup and you press 3, because next to it you'll see DEG 3, and then you press your equal to button. So that is for the Casio calculator that the majority of you have. One or two of you have the Sharp calculator, so it's up to you to be able to know the steps involved in changing it into degree mode. Now, finding the sine, cos and tan then of any angle is actually very straightforward. So if you see the fourth line, or the fourth line down in your calculator, so we say 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll see the buttons sine, cos and tan. So just say it says use your calculator to find correct 2 decimal places the value of sine 58. So we're looking for sine of 58 degrees. So you just simply press sine 5, 8 and then the equal to button. And that will give you an answer of 0.8480. Now it says correct 2 decimal places, so rounding it off, that will give me 0.85. If you're looking for cos 74 degrees or cos of any angle, then you just press cos first. So you press the cos button and then 7, 4 and then equal to button. And that will give you, rounding off to 2 decimal places, 0.28. The exact same process is if we're looking for a tan of an angle. So this time we're looking for tan 37 degrees. So we press tan 37 equal to button. And that will give you an answer of 0.7536. And rounding it off to 2 decimal places, it would be 0.75. Now, we can also use a calculator going backwards. So if they gave you the trig ratio and ask you to find the angle, okay? So when you use your calculator, you would find that sine 60 is equal to 0.8660, okay? But what if you're asked what angle has a sine of 0.8660, okay? So of course it's going to be 60, but how do we figure out that in the calculator? So when they give you the trig ratio in decimal or fraction form, then you must use inverse sine, cos and tan. So the inverse sine, cos and tan would look like sine minus 1, okay, on your screen, or cos minus 1 would be the inverse of cos, and the inverse of tan would be tan minus 1. So that would come up on your screen here. So to get the inverse of either sine, cos or tan, you must press the shift button first. So for inverse sine, it's shift sine. For inverse cos, it would be shift cos. And for inverse tan, it would be shift tan. So you only use the inverse button if they give you the trig ratio in decimal or fraction form, okay? So decimal and fraction form. Okay, so just putting that into practice then, going through this example here. So find the angle A when sine A is equal to 0.8660. So then you must press inverse sine, which is shift sine, and then you put in your 0.8660. Press the equal button and you'll get your answer on your screen to be 59.99 degrees, which is 60 degrees correct to the nearest degree. So when they give you the trig ratio in decimal or fraction form, we must use the inverse sine, cos and tan. And to get that, you must press shift before sine, shift before the cos, and to get inverse tan, shift before the tan. So 2 examples on that would be if they gave you that the sine ratio was 0.5786, find A is the angle correct to the nearest degree. So they gave us the ratio in decimal form, so we know we have to use inverse sine. So we have to use inverse sine 0.5786. And to do that into your calculator, you must press Shift sign first and then slot in the value that they gave you, which was 0.5786, and then press the equal to button. And then on your screen, you're going to get 35.5321. So to the nearest degree then, they said 35 degrees. Now they might go one step further here and they might say and to the nearest degree and minute. So if they ask you for that, then you use this button here, which is the hour, degree, minute, second button. And if you just press that, you'll get 35 degrees, 21 minutes. Okay, so just in case they ask you to give it to the nearest degree and minute. But in this case, they didn't, so we'll just stop at the nearest degree, which is 35 degrees. So we'll do another example. So if the tan B is equal to 1.8453, find B correct to the nearest degree. Okay, so again, they gave us the ratio of the angle in decimal form, so we have to use inverse tan. So it's inverse tan of 1.8453. So slotting that into your calculator then, so for inverse tan, you must press Shift tan and then put in 1.853 and press your equal to button. And that will give you a value of 61.54. So that's 61.54. And rounding that off to the nearest degree will give me 62 degrees. Okay, so remember we were saying that we can use the inverse sine, cos and tan, or the inverse of an angle when we're giving the ratio in decimal or fraction form. So I'm going to do an example where we're given fraction. It in fraction form. Now the first thing here it says, we'll read the question, it says find to the nearest degree the value of the angle B. Okay, so B is here and they give us 4 and 7. So the first thing you've got to do is we have to figure out which ratio are we using. Are we using sine, cos and tan? So you label your sides in relation to the given angle. So we're going to label 4. Now 4 is directly opposite B, so we know that is the opposite side. Okay, so 4 is opposite. The 7 is next to or adjacent to the angle B, so then 7 represents the adjacent side. So we should be familiar with labeling opposite, adjacent and hypotenuse. So then you have to think of the ratios. So remember, either you learned it by silly old Harry, caught a herring trawling off America, or Sakatoa. So just say I'll do Sakatoa up here. So it is Toa. Okay, so then which ratio do I have opposite over adjacent? So remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is a ratio that uses opposite and adjacent. So we have opposite and adjacent here, so it is tan. So we're looking for tan of B. Okay, and that is equal to, now we know tan is opposite over adjacent, so opposite comes first, all over adjacent, which will give me 4 over 7. So now we're looking for a value of tan B when they give you the ratio in fraction form. So we know when they give it to us in fraction form or in a decimal, you must use inverse tan. So that would be inverse tan or inverse B, 4 all over 7. So to slot that into your calculator then, you're just going to press Shift tan, you'll press the fraction button, you put in your 4, arrow down and then your 7. And when you slot that into the calculator, you get 29.7, so you get 29.744. My point there. So that works out to the nearest degree, 30 degrees. So another example of those ones there. So we have to get the value of B. So again, we don't know if it's sine, cos or tan. So we label the sides in relation to B. So the 17 is directly opposite the right angle. So that would be my hypotenuse. and then my 13 is next to or adjacent to the angle B, so then 13 would be my adjacent. So then we have to figure out, again, write down the SOHCAHTOA, okay, if you're unsure, or silly old Harry caught a herring trolling off America. And we're going to see which ratio uses the combination of adjacent and hypotenuse. So we know adjacent and hypotenuse is the C, and that C stands for cos. So basically we have here cos of the angle B is equal to, now cos adjacent comes first, so it's 13 all over 17. Okay, so I follow the ratio of cos, which is adjacent all over the hypotenuse. So now we're looking for an angle when we're giving it in fraction or decimal form. So remember, in your calculator, you have to use inverse cos. Okay, so we press shift cos. So you'll have inverse cos in your calculator, and then you do 13 all over 17, and that works out to be 40.11, which works out to be 40 degrees.